Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Marie Macaulay, and we will be starting our 10th webinar this week. We are going to be discussing distance learning, and more specifically addressing the question of, can open distance learning help ensure the continuity of lifelong learning? And this is, as I just said, the 10th webinar as part of our thematic webinar series, which takes place every week, and in which we discuss a different question every week. Today's webinar, similar to the others, will last 1 hour. The webinar is being recorded, and the recording will be available on the UIL YouTube channel. We provide a link to this page in the chat for you to have. The format for the webinar is similar to that of last week's for those of us that were with us. We will have individual presentations from organizations and cities, followed by a question and answer period. At the end of the presentation, we give the opportunity to the speakers to answer one question to help clarify any particular point related to the strategies discussed or the measures implemented. Now, if you're interested in hearing from us after the webinar and to receive information in your mailbox with relation to the content we've discussed, we suggest that you sign up to the UIL newsletter by clicking on the link which is provided in the chat for you. The audience is muted, so just note that you cannot speak during this webinar. Only speakers are able to speak. We invite you all to use the Q&A section. At the bottom of your screen, there's a Q&A option in which you can type in the different questions you have throughout the presentations and for different speakers or for everybody. And these questions will be picked and then asked at the end of this presentation and when we open the Q&A session. When you write in the chat bar, if you do, I would also invite you to write to all the panelists as well as all the participants. This makes sure that the message that you're writing is addressed to everybody who is in the webinar room. Now, last little announcement before we get started. I'd like to inform you that the period for the membership applications for the UNESCO Global Network of Learning Cities has been extended for another 2 months. Cities have the possibility of applying until June 30th, 2020. And then national commissions have 1 month until July 31st, 2020 to endorse the procedure. Any information with regards to membership application is available using, again, the link that will be provided in the chat bar. With that, I'd like to now open the floor to our moderator, my colleague Jean-Louis Park from the UNESCO UIL Institute. Jean-Louis, the floor is yours, and happy presentations.
Thank you very much, Mary. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. My name is Chung Hui from UIL. I'm the ICT in Lifelong Learning Specialist. I just greet you, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I learned this because of this pandemic, because we have done a lot of remote working, remote call, remote meetings. And this is just one small thing that I learned, to greet everyone from different time zones and everything. So this is just a small thing, but I can imagine how many new normalcy and new things are happening at the moment because of the pandemic. And adults ourselves have a lot of things to learn and a lot of things to cope with. And we are not knowing what kind of challenges are coming the next day. So with all these challenges, we have unprecedented kind of needs of learning and new knowledge. And unfortunately, if you are aware, the adult learning centers in and around the world actually is the first to close down because of the social distance measures and everything. And those who needs a lot of support for the adult learning and the knowledge update and small things like how to, small things from how to wash your hands 20 seconds now, and how to cope with the telework stress, how to help our children who are home learning, all these kind of things, parenting skills, are left to the adults themselves. So we at UIL try to think about how actually these adult learning centers and adult learning providers and cities are coping with these demands from the adults, and accommodate these needs of growing needs of this adult learning through different modalities and alternative ways. So that's why we decided to do this webinar around the theme of online and distance learning for adult education. So we are actually having a very exciting webinar today. We have promising cases, interesting cases using this online and open learning modalities for adults, and especially for the marginalized group from around the world, from Thailand, Malawi, and Ireland. Unfortunately, the mayor of Zomba city in Malawi could not make it today because of the connectivity issues, and this is all what we are facing at the moment, actually, not just I think this webinar itself. So we are still very fortunate to have a case from Thailand and case from Limerick City in Ireland. And without further ado, I would like to introduce our first speaker, which is actually guest speaker of this webinar, not part of the Learning City, but her initiative is really, really impressive and amazing. So I really wanted to share this case to the Learning Cities. Her name is Professor Kamola Intaratat, and the founder and director of the Research Center of Communication and Development Knowledge Management, in short CCDKM, from Thailand. And she will present interesting cases that her team has been undertaking to provide open and distance learning for marginalized youth and adults in Thailand. Ms. Intaratat, Professor Intaratat, floor is yours.
สวัสดีค่ะ Good afternoon, good evening, good afternoon from Thailand. Yeah, thank you very much for UIL Chongwi to invite me to join this sharing session. We are very honored to share and learn from you all too. We are very proud that from Thailand, from the region of Southeast Asia, we have done some. We have been doing this kind of ODL for about 2 decades. So let me a bit introduce myself and my organization. I am from ODL University in Thailand. In Thailand, we have only one ODL university. So in our university, some people call nickname that's People University. That means that university that use the ODL to facilitate education to all the people. And then I'm very proud to tell you all that my university has the biggest number of handicapped students. So this is how we serve education to the marginalized. So CCDKM is the autonomous expertise research center under the ODL University. So this is the story about my CCDKM and STOU Sukhothai Thammathirat ODL University. So if you ask me about, next slide please. So if you ask me about how we serve education to the marginalized people in Thailand and also in the region of Southeast Asia, so we have the principle, the basic principle as you see on the second frame, please. Yes, yeah. Second frame. Maybe have second frame. Yes, okay, thank you. So this is a simple framework that the CCDKM and my university has tried to fix on this philosophy that we found out that many underserved or marginalized people, they mostly have 3 difficulties in life. So what education that we try to give to them, or what ICT that we try to give to them is how can ICT can let them earn more, because they mostly don't have enough money. So how can ICT can convey the education that can let them earn more money? So this is the first priority that my CCDKM and my university serve the people. And then the second point is we found out that the majority people of the marginalized people is they cannot well access to the fundamental information, the information about the welfare, about any kinds of schooling, the hospital, kind of that. So that how ICT can empowering them to access this kind of fundamental welfare for their quality of life. And then once they're strong, they come up to be kind of equity. They want to be somebody for themselves. So the ICT to empowering them to be somebody for themselves, to push up or to strengthening their self-esteem is the ICT for education that we serve them for the dignity, education for dignity. So this kind of framework that we use to empowering all the underserved people is kind of functional education, functional academy that they said. So this is the framework that we keep working for about 2 decades. Yes. So let's see that. Okay, this is the example of our functional literacy. You see this. Have you familiar with this symbol? This is the CCDKM Academy that we just immediately decided during the COVID-19 spreading in Thailand. Meaning that the CCDKM has provided the platform, the learning platform. So you might doubt that, oh wow, how can CCDKM providing the platform, learning platform for the underserved people in our country? Actually, our country, we have our national single learning platform that we call Thai MOOC. MOOC is massive open online courses. But for the Thai MOOC, our national platform is quite a little bit designed for the formal education. So this is the reason why the ministry asked CCDKM and STOU to provide the alternative education. And then we put our education into the formal platform. The problem is the formal platform is designed for the well-educated or the white collar. You will take about 5 steps minimum to access to the knowledge that you want to learn. So I got a lot of complaints from my marginal people. Hey, I cannot access to your education if this kind of learning platform. So this is the reason why CCDKM has created the learning platform and academy by themselves. That's called CCDKM Academy. And then we provide a platform that all the community as well as all the partner can share the slot of this learning platform to contribute the knowledge to the people. So for example, like this one is our platform is use all the ICT, like the information to serve all the small farmer. And then this one is the most updated one is the academy for the taxi driver, because in this kind of situation of the COVID-19, one among the high risk group of people is a taxi driver, because the many of the foreigner that is a passenger, they are dejected to wear the mask, the face mask. They're saying that I'm not a sick person, don't let me wear it, kind of that. So we got some statistic that our taxi driver got some of the positive infected. So the National Association of the Taxi Driver called CCDKM, hey, can you please help kind of this academy is a fast track academy, that's kind of. So meaning that we have used all kind of technology, meaning simplify and tailor-made ICT to access to the people. This is the how. If we have time, I can show you the taxi driver in Thailand academy for you if we have time later on, right? And then next slide, please. So this is our platform. We call the Smart MOOC, because in Thailand now our national single knowledge platform we call Thai MOOC. And then for the Thai MOOC is for the formal education mostly. So we put all the alternative education into this learning platform that is facilitated and organized by the CCDKM STOU. And then we got a lot of variety of underserved people, including, besides from the small farmer, including the tribe people and the home-based worker or the non-formal education school student, kind of that. We also got, you might already know that Thailand is a Buddhism country, right? We got more than about 500 monks, 500,000 monks in about 100 of temple all over the country that cannot access to the education. So this is some of the reason because in many of the remote temple or remote places, the monk cannot access to education. So the CCDKM has seen that by this positive phenomenon in the hands of all the people in Thailand, even though they are marginalized or not, they have the smartphone in their hands. So kind of, so we have learned a lot from almost 2 decades that, okay, CCDKM has already accumulated a lot of knowledge about ICT for marginalized education. And in my country, so many marginalized, and it's very strange that most of the education designed for the formal education. So this is the reason why we try to saying that marginalized people is the majority of the people. So let's see that how can we do for them. So this is example of the course that you can get in our website of CCDKM or our learning platform of Smart Move, and then you can get in. So by this year, we have a lot of more of, we call it mobile education to educate to all the niche group. The first priority group for this year is the education for the monks. Second is the education for the caregiver, because we got the contact from the Ministry of Human Security and Social Welfare to do the education for the senior citizen. Because right now in this year, Thailand has announced to be the national agenda of aging society. So I have discussed with the policy people that, hey, the policy is great, because by next year the Thai population, 20% of them will be the senior citizen. So we still offer them the typical education that many of them still left behind. So we volunteer to work with the Ministry of Human Security and People Welfare, that could you please let me try to add up ICT into the Academy of the Senior Citizen, and then call it the Smart Aging Academy. So we have a lot of, we got more than 100,000 of senior people to be our students to learn about this Smart Aging Academy, this kind of. So my last slide I would like to share with you is the last slide is, so we come to my last slide. This is the picture that we finished last year. We worked with the partner or the local partner, that is a Luck Thai Foundation, and also we work with the non-formal education with the alternative department to use ICT to reach out to this kind of the tribal girls and young women, and also the boys in the tribal village, kind of that. So meaning that we design the academy that we call functional education. Functional education, that means mostly all the audience of our group, like the tribal women or girls, they mostly got married at the young age. And then a majority of their work is more on the homework and then the home-based working, like the craft, heritage, kind of that. They don't have time to go to school or to get any upskill, kind of that. So this is the example that I would like to share, that we are very happy that we have test with all the stakeholder, from the policy into the grassroots partner, that the education is always welcome from a marginal group of people. But how can we make this kind of education to be a very functioning to themselves? They can earn, they can learn, they can be a human being, they can be proud of themselves, and then they can be contribute back to the society by their own once they are strong, kind of that. So I was saying that in my experience of about 2 decades of ICT for marginalized, I think that especially this kind of COVID-19, I'm very happy, people, you might think that I might be crazy, kind of that, but I'm happy because I'm from the ODL University. I use ICT to facilitate all kinds of empowerment for about 2 decades. And then it found out that many people saying that, wow, we need we need physical training, we need intensive, we need kind of that. For this kind of COVID-19, I'm happy. I can people realize, people adopt, people admit that ICT is a must. So my next duty is, how can we facilitate ICT to let the ICT facilitate the friendly learning, friendly academy. So this is the outcome of our experiment, that the meaningful education, functional education is the education that can include them in, let them inclusive in the process of being themselves and in the process of development. So this is my part. And then if time slots still have, I would like to share some of the common question that, hey, it seems like you are Superman, huh? Like a superwoman. It seems like all the success story, lots of flower along the way. But actually, we keep trying earlier all the time, because as we all already recognize that education is mostly for formal education, but for informal education is a bit challenge, because marginalized is very variety, different need, different context, different challenges, kind of that. So the point that we are doing is, uh, we just start with the group that they are ready to jump and work with us. And the second thing is, because I'm old, so I walk up to the ministry and talk to the police. Hey, may you please listen to me a little bit? I have some bit of idea. For example, like the Aging Academy for Thailand. So I said, may you please add a little bit ICT into that education? I am willing to do it for you as a prototype. That's kind of, and then they adopt it. So we have the extra ICT academy up beside from the current one, and then we will kick off in this coming June. Then we have 100,000 of senior students that learning in the senior school all over the country. So that is one part. And second part is the strategy of success is we work collaborate among the partner. So if you go to Thailand in the public hospital, you will see a lot of senior citizens, senior people in the
1 minute, please. Sorry.
1 minute.
Yes.
Okay, you see a lot of senior citizens, and then meaning that the long-term care in the community is a must. So the CCDKM has matching with the WHO, like the decade of healthy aging, that we learn from them, and we simplify the policy and take to the policy of Thailand and use ICT to make a friendly academy. So meaning that we will have a huge number of volunteer caregiver, certified caregiver, and nurse aide all over the country in the next coming year. So I would say that partnership and uh, what you call it, fully participation, connecting the dot is the strategy that we have done. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Intaratat. I actually had the questions about how you actually manage all these partnerships, and then how can you stay abreast of all those needs from different actors and learners. And you nicely summarized how you actually did it as a strategy to strengthen the partnership and then have a more participatory approach in designing those learning programs. So thank you very much. I have a list of questions from the floor, but I will give you some time to prepare the answers in at the end of the webinar. And mostly, just to introduce some of the questions, mostly about the accessibility or the availability of the devices and internet, how actually you manage to reach out to all the people. And is there any issues with mobile connectivities and devices in those marginalized people? So that's basically the common questions coming from the audience. So we are now moving to our second speaker, Ms. Emer Brophy, from the city of Limerick, Ireland. And she is the chairperson of the Learning Limerick Steering Group of Limerick and Clare Education and Training Board. So without further ado, I will give you the floor, Ms. Brophy. Sorry.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Professor Intaratat, for the presentation before me. Greetings to everybody from Limerick, Ireland. Good afternoon. We're going to talk today about open distance learning in if I could have the next slide, actually, just if I can move down on the slide there, yes. And talking about our where we're located. So Limerick is a city, the third city in Ireland, located in the Midwest region. And it has a population with the city and its environment, the county around it, of over 200,000 residents. If I could move to the next slide. What the Limerick Learning, we're very proud to be part of the Limerick Learning Steering Group, and we are Limerick UNESCO Learning City, which the award we received in 2017. And as part of that award and as part of the work we're doing, we have a strategic plan which puts the context of our defining how we will work as a information city, as a learning city, and as a learning region. We want to make it more than just the city. We want to extend that to the region around the city and build on that. The steering group is led by the Limerick and Clare Education Training Board, the County Council, the partnerships, and it's the statutory development, business, community, voluntary sector all participating. So it's that partnership that leads out on the steering group. One of our key programs every year is an annual Limerick Lifelong Learning Festival. And that learning festival has over 200 events. It includes, international seminars, regional seminars, and it involves the communities being involved in learning. It also involves businesses. So it is get the whole city, the whole region involved in a learning festival. We're celebrating our 10th festival, 10 years birthday in September, and it'll be a virtual one. Like the rest of you, we are learning a lot about virtual presentations, virtual arts world, virtual concerts. It is a new way of living at the moment. We signed a memorandum of understanding between our third level partners and the County Council with the Limerick and Clare Education Training Board, which would be what we're doing there is we're looking at positioning the Limerick Learning Committee across the third level, the further education and training, which I work for, and the County Council. So the All-Ireland network of UNESCO cities is hugely important in the work we do. We have extended from Limerick and Cork to Belfast, Dublin and Derry. So we have an All-Ireland network of UNESCO cities, Limerick and Cork, who have their award, and the others who are looking to become UNESCO learning cities. We have our own website. We have a Learning Neighbourhoods project, which we have commenced. And we also have a Learning Ambassadors project. And the Learning Ambassadors project is bringing learning to the community. And it's allowing ambassadors from community reflect and represent what a learning city is for them. So both those projects are a way of bringing the learning to the to communities. We've been, like all of you, we've been looking at how we're going to look at open distance learning, and particularly as we respond to COVID. If I could have the next slide, please. The rush online is how we're describing this here. I mean, we've had a 10-fold increase in Teams, and Limerick and Clare Education Training Board is indicative of what's happening around the country and what's happening regionally, in the sense that as an education board which caters for over 19 schools, and for the further education and training remit, which would be people who are working as training to be apprentices, people who are working up to level 6 on the national qualification framework in Ireland or the European qualification framework. So in that context, we've had an increase, a 2-fold increase in Moodle, in virtual learning environments. We've had a 10-fold increase in Zoom, in Teams, and a lot of business practitioners are using Zoom, obviously, for their work. How did the learners, next slide, how did learners react to that? Now this slide is interesting actually, and we're discussing it with my colleague Brendan Ryan, who was preparing this with me, who is Director of Technology in Learning in the Limerick and Clare Education Training Board. So not everybody signed up straight away to get involved in online learning, if the truth were to be told. But if you look at the pie chart, there was a lot of people did get involved, and there was a significant variance in that state of engagement. So we did have, we do have engagement. We have learners who are working with us, but obviously the city that we're living in is a region of great prosperity and also great economic disadvantage. So in areas of high economic disadvantage, we would probably have, we have a less use of technology, and we have digital exclusion. If I can move to the next slide, how do we reach community? I mean, we have in the Limerick and Clare Education Training Board a very vibrant community education practice and community education settings. How do you reach community when you're working offline? So we're using the platform Padlet, and that has enabled us to, it's much loved by people who use art and who, it's interactive. So it enables, it doesn't quite replace I suppose the human interaction, but it at least allows for a very interactive piece. So that has been something we have used. The next slide. If you look at how do we respond to industry and how do we respond to the workplace? So like all of you around the world, we are coping with remote, we're working remotely. Our schools are closed, our colleges are closed, and our healthcare and hospital sector looked for assistance. So we looked at providing online training for those who needed to work in hospitals and care setting in infection prevention control. So 6 weeks ago, we'd have been doing that course in a classroom, whereas now we are doing that course online, and we have many people have signed up to do it. So that's an online course in infection prevention and control, very topical at this time. If I could move to the next slide, please. When you talk about how many people went online and whether we have those that are very digitally literate and those who aren't. In Ireland, when we did this is the DESI, the EU Digital Economic and Society Index 2019 figures. that we actually score quite interestingly in the basic skills, where if you look at adults across the country, there's a variance, and we're scoring there, we're ranking 23rd out of 27 countries, which people having at least basic digital skills. So, and above basic digital skills, we're at 19. So we've a long way to go if you take the population as a whole to increase the digital skills and the ability to be digitally literate. But if you look at the other side of that, is our graduates and those who are coming out of our third levels and who are coming out of our other sectors score very highly in working in ICT and in being involved, and female graduates being involved in that area as well. We're at 2 and 4 in that. So there is a variance. There is a variance in that, and it's just something to bear in mind, and we bear in mind for the work that we do. Thank you. The next slide. One of the initiatives that the city as a whole, under the auspices of the County Council, working in partnership with the statutory agencies, of which Limerick and Clare Education Training Board is one, is we are developing a smart city, and we're building Ireland's first digital city. And this is headed up by a colleague of ours, Michał, in Limerick County Council, and the Digital Inclusion Committee, subcommittee of that, is headed by my colleague, Brendan Ryan, who I mentioned earlier. And in digital inclusion, they have a working group, which is what we need to look at. The Tavistock Institute is carrying out qualitative research for us, whereby we can look at, I suppose we want to look at what was the response pre-COVID, how did we respond to being digitally included as we go through lockdown and as we go through this I suppose this phenomenon we find ourselves in, this world of a pandemic, and what significant learning can we capture from that? So it's qualitative research that's taking place at the moment. And I suppose part of it, and one of the kind of raison d'etre behind it, and one of the reasons and things we want to drive, is how we will identify digital inclusion pathways. I mean, we are aware that people from certain communities are being excluded. They may have their mobile phones, but they are still being excluded and not naturally using the digital platforms to engage in their learning. And so that research is taking place for us at the moment, and it'll frame our responses in building our smart learning city, and it'll also frame our responses in building our UNESCO learning city, continuing to build Limerick as a UNESCO learning city and region. And I suppose the last part of what that research is doing ties very nicely to, if I could move to the next slide, sorry. The last part of what that research is doing is, it's sharing knowledge gained at local, national and international levels. And I would say, to end this in many ways, it is what we're doing here as being part of UNESCO and being part of the greater UNESCO family. We're sharing our knowledge with you, and looking forward to hearing from you and to answer any questions. So I'd just like to take this opportunity just to thank my colleague Yvonne Lane in the preparation of this presentation, who coordinates the UNESCO Learning City in Limerick for us, and my colleague Brendan Ryan. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Brophy. Thank you very much, Ms. Brophy, for your very informative presentation. Actually, in the most of the questions that we are having is probably it can be answered by your research that you are currently doing at the moment, right? So a lot of questions are about how are we actually accommodating the low-resourced population, or the people who don't have access to those devices or even internet. So do you have any, Professor Interatad or Ms. Brophy, do you have any responses you have done it to accommodate those low-resourced population?
Okay, if I can start first, Professor Interat. We have a certain number of resources available to us through the Department of Education, which would enable us to have funding, which allows us to have laptops and iPads that we can give to and work with people who may not have access to some. So we have some schemes like that where we can share devices, or we can allow devices to be used by people on courses. So that has been one way. And that's only a very small part, though. That might be one or two small interactions. I think having an awareness, an acute awareness, because we're doing the research and we're involved in the smart city, allows us as an education training board to respond or look at ways that we can respond in the future through access of other funding streams. So in answer to your question, no, we don't have the magic formula for getting a laptop or iPad out to everybody. And the development of of working with Padlet with community is a way, in many ways, for us to involve community. But other than that, we haven't been, we haven't been able to reach all of those learners who have not been engaged.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Brophy. Professor Intarata. So, well, on top of these responses to have more funding to distribute those devices and internet, have you ever used other means of communication or learning, like radio, TV, those less online devices?
Pardon again? Sorry.
Yeah, so Professor Intarata, you can also respond to the same question about how we ensure the outreach, the most possible outreach of the learning to our marginalized people. But at the same time, have you done any measures to use other kind of means of communication, like radio or TV? So that's actually two questions.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Actually, I have seen lots of problems, but the majority is on accessibility and availability, right? And then especially in our region of Southeast Asia, including especially in Thailand, we have a big gap of income and people. So up to the mountain, along to the remote area, no internet. Some is still no electricity. Internet is still very slow. So I also would like to share with you, even in the jail, in the prison, we also offer this kind of academy to them. How can? So we have the external server. So it's kind of convergent media. For example, at the beginning, let me start with kind of internet issue and availability. For example, that we work with the mountain people, the young girls and young women. The local, we will work as a partnership, stakeholder, local administrative bureau. Hey, we would like to pilot this to create the awareness, to create the evidence, to convince them that it could be possible. So the local partner and like NGO and like Thai Foundation, they say, okay, I contribute one computer laptop, and then I talk to the telecom service provider in the area. Hey, may you please support the internet speedy in the pilot area, and then talk to the local business bureau. You provide me the community hall safety space, and then plug in together, and then make it happen. So meaning that some of the girls and the tribal people, they have the internet in their own phone, okay, and they use it, but they also provide the schedule for the public space or community space for all of them to use it at the same time together. So kind of that. And then this is a solution that I have seen a lot of question about this kind of issue. I think that even in the prison, just take note that even in the prison we can provide this academy, so no doubt, because in the prison no internet, right? So we design kind of the hybrid training. For example, like we offer the entrepreneurship, the startup academy for the youngster that is a prisoner in the jail, in the prison, and then we put it in the external server and let them learn, and then send the trainer to train in the physical setting, and then print out the assessment for them to make the physical test, not online test, kind of that. So I think that with the low resources that we have, we try to collaborate at the most we can, and then try to adapt or adjust what we have. So that is could make it happen. And then we also have kind of the ICT master plan of the country to drive Thailand to be the netizen, nobody left behind. So we have a lot of existing resources like a telecenter or community telecenter that used to be kind of. So I think that by many questions that worry about the accessibility, I think that just do it. It is a way. And then the second thing is the availability of the devices. Same, like somebody donate the devices. Ministry of Education also donate some kind of tablet, and then put it together like a pool resources that use together. And then beside from that, the smartphone in Thailand is quite cheap, very cheap, kind of that, especially the second-hand one. So anyone can access to the smartphone. But the key point is the internet. For learning online, still need a strong internet. That is a key point. And this is also offered to the policy that if you want to move Thailand to all the Thai people to be the netizen, how can you provide them the slow internet? Impossible. So kind of that. So I'm quite talk a lot because I'm also I talk a lot. So
thank you very much, Professor Interata. Yeah, this is what just Professor Interata just said is exactly what she always do it in Thailand. I've been working with her quite a lot when I was in Bangkok, and just do it is her motto actually to provide the vast majority of people, even marginalized, the learning opportunities. I like the other question that I like was actually motivating factors from the audience. So Miss Brophy,
yes,
you have a lot of programs, very interesting programs in your learning program, and also we've noticed that there are some issues with unemployability in the city of Limerick. Yeah. And so I would like to know and then share with the audience what is your strategy actually to keep motivating the adult learners to keep coming back to your center to learn those new skills, and what was the impact so far for those job seekers?
Okay. Well, there's a few parts to that question. We have lots of strategies that I can talk to. We are passionate about further education and training, and in getting people to return to further education and training. So, I mean, nationally, from a few levels. So nationally, we have a further education and training strategy. We actually have a lot of policies and guidance around the implementation of programs and plans that are well funded to bring digital skills to people who are on the lower levels of education. So give you two examples. We have an Explore project, which we work with industry, which is those in industry who are low skilled and most in danger of losing their job, and maybe an older learner can access a free iPad and can access a program where they can learn about their digital skills. So this is a funded initiative to motivate that learner to get engaged and to upskill. We have a number of other initiatives then on our programs. We have a budget coming in under Skills to Advance, which motivates employers in work to come online and well, they didn't have to come online necessarily until a few weeks ago, but to engage in further education and training, either online or offline. And they're given time to do that, and the state are paying for that. So that is state funded again. So those initiatives are there to draw people into. The other piece I wanted to just address was throughout the country, with the pandemic, we have an initiative through government, which is our schools, which would be called, because this comes up in the questions here, schools which are designated disadvantaged are further education training colleges, where there is, through philanthropy and through exchequer funding, there is access to computers and access to online, to iPads and laptops to enable those people to engage. So to break down your questions to me, like what are we doing to motivate? Well, we have funding, which assists us to motivate. We have a strategy and a plan with objectives in it, which we're working to. We have targets to reach, which is to, under our national skills strategy, it is to increase the level of education of every citizen in the country to a higher level. So we're motivated to do that, and we're given funding, and that's the remit of the organization I'm working for, which is a further education, or an education and training board. So so I suppose that if that answers the question, that is, there's some of the initiatives, state funded, policies that are in place, targets we have to reach, and may I add, a great team of people who are working together who want to do that. So we have some good fun along the way as well.
Thank you very much, Ms. Brophy. I do think that I do agree with you that people who are working in this field really makes a big difference. Actually, the commitment and the devotion of those people who are working in this area of non-formal education, adult education for the marginalized, really, we always appreciate those devotion and commitment. Professor Intaratat, I heard from your presentation that now some of the smart MOOC is actually certified by the Ministry of Education as kind of a credit course, right? So why did you do that, and how did you do that?
Yeah, it's quite a long journey, right?
Right.
Because by the situation of a lot of training, keep training to the marginalized people, and then many of them keep asking me that too much training. What could it get from what could it get more from training, kind of that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's come up to be kinds of meaningful training or functional training, kind of that. So meaning that if we want them to, I try to combine some of the question, like if we want them to join the program, we need to answer them clearly that what will they gain from joining the program, kind of that. So, and then if they just join the training, who will certify that kind of certificate, and then how can they make use from that kind of certificate? So this kind of question, we really need to work together with a lot of people. So for example, like kind of the caregiver or the nurse aide, or the many of the like even the taxi driver. We talk with the National Association of the Taxi Driver that, hey, we do this kind of collaboration and standardization, and then we certify if any of the taxi driver access and pass the standard or the pass the criteria, then we got the label, then we got the certified, kind of that. So this just to serve the people for their daily life, for their money or their earning. But for example of the caregiver, like they come, mostly we have more than 100,000 of people to be the volunteer caregiver in the area. And then when I talk with them, oh, you come again, training again, I'm very bored. I'm very bored. So I said that, okay, we got a smart training. Smart training meaning that you use your mobile phone. We will train you more how to use more of the mobile phone first, and then if you want to stop at this kind of just access or just aware, that's okay for you. At least you know about how to taking care of your health. But some of the people, they are very active. They saying that I want to be the certified caregiver. Okay, you have to study more. And then I'm not the certified person. My university and the Nursing Council of Thailand and the TPQI Thailand Qualification Certified Office work together and set the competency criteria. And then, for example, of the caregiver, we have 4 levels: first, second, third, fourth. If you can pass this kind of, you can get a job. You cannot just only the nobody caregiver. You are the certified caregiver. So you know, like now we have a long list of volunteer caregiver to enter our training. And some question is, do you provide online training? No, actually we plan that we will provide them the online training, but since online training with the physical intensive, since the COVID come, we have redesigned the training program to be totally online, kind of that, and then stop at this point. And then we continue to about the another group of the smart caregiver. They're saying that I already passed 4 level of the caregiver to the nurse aide. That is the helper of the nurse, kind of that. So meaning that they come up to be level 5, 6. And then that's certified by the TPQI and the National Council of Nursing Thailand. They have to go for very intensive, and then they got professional certified. And then some people say, I would like to get a degree. So we decide the academy that can be equivalent to the credit banking that they can collecting in my faculty of nursing in my university. So meaning that one day some of the lady or some of the girls in the remote area could be the nurse aides with a degree in their hands. It's very complicated and take time, but
yes.
Finally we'll kick off it this year. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Many people are very interested in this.
I can imagine how complicated and how multiple players have to be involved in setting all these things in place. So we are running out of time now. So I would like to have my last question from the Q&A box. Actually, it's quite interesting. So what is your post-pandemic plan? Is it anything that changed or will change your plan of learning program after this pandemic? Miss Brophy first.
The reason I'm laughing is we've many post-pandemic plans, and I suppose in essence and in seriousness to the question, now that we are working and responding to a pandemic, we have increased our remote working and we have increased our online provision. I suppose our plan as we go forward is to continue to increase our online provision, because there's merit to that, and we have a number of our development work with teachers and with with lecturers is developing their online material. So our plan is to continue the development of online resources. It is also though to continue the, I just want to make because I'm watching some of the other questions as well. It's online resources in the broader sense. So it is the more digitally included you are, the more included you are, from your socioeconomic status to your mental health to all of that. So it is that's why the work that they're doing with the Tavistock Institute and that should give us some raw data, which will be the benefits of working and bringing people into a digital inclusion zone. So in essence, we are planning to increase our online, and we're also to be more ready when the next lockdown or pandemic comes. Please God, not for a long time. Okay.
Thank you very much, Ms. Profi. And we are also very looking forward to your research findings on the inclusiveness, right?
We'd like to hear those. Thank you.
Yes, Professor Interatat?
Yeah.
Any post-pandemic plan?
Yes. You know, even myself, I still don't think about the post-pandemic, you know, because we are working very hard today, day to day, because we can see the positive environment after this. People accept ICT, people accept online learning, and then is the opportunity for my ODL university also. People get used to e-meeting and e-learning or everything. Then the now and the post is how to create a very functional and responsive academy to welcome people, because the new generation, they don't like the typical or traditional education anymore. Hybrid learning, blended learning, flipped class, all kind of thing. So we have to current project about the kind of the pattern of hybrid learning to fit with the specific niche group. For example, which kinds of learning that fit with the senior citizen, that fit with the tribal people, that fit with the urban poor people, kind of that. So I think that the time is very good for the ODL education. I think that ODL people is quite ignored for somehow, but by this time ODL is kind of flexible to the 21st century of education. I do like it. I don't want to be old. I would love to see many of phenomena. Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Thank you very much, Professor Interatat. Thank you again, Ms. Profi and Professor Interatat, for your really inspiring projects sharing. I would like to summarize our session with the 3 points, actually. So first of all, digital device is always an almost concern of this ODL. And so Professor Interatat and also Ms. Profi brought up really useful strategy. Ms. Profi was saying the city of Limerick is actually doing a very in-depth analysis and research on how to increase inclusiveness of this ODL for the most marginalized people. And Professor Interatat also trying to use offline devices, offline means to reach out to many of those marginalized people who may not have access to the internet. In the UNESCO website, you can find, I will send you the link later after this webinar. You can find the list of the platforms or learning resources that you can use offline. And those are very well curated in our website. So I will share with you the list of those offline resources. The second point is, and at this point of the pandemic and emergency, we don't have much time and luxury of thinking and planning and all this. Probably we go with a pilot, just like what Professor Interatat mentioned in her project, and also Ms. Profi. We go with a pilot, a small scale, and try to do it, just do it, and try to see whether it works. If it works, then we can expand the scope of it. We can still start with a hybrid mode. We can start with the full online mode, or we can start with different measures, but let's just do it. The last one, but not least one, and more complicated one is actually the policy measures. I listened to 2 presentations, and it really involves a lot of policy measures and comprehensive planning at the national level to motivate the learners to keep coming back to our adult learning and everything, they have to have something in hand in exchange of the learning, not just learning gain, but also some kind of equivalency credits or certification especially for the marginalized people who wants to find new jobs or who need to find jobs from different countries if this person came from different foreign countries, like refugees and migrants. So some of the countries' case, like I can introduce Bhutan's case, they actually put the non-formal education and adult education in the master plan of ICT. It helped the country tremendously because now it's explicitly said in the policy that non-formal education has to have some kind of internet or in ICT infrastructure to have equal access, to provide equal access to the non-formal learners. So it is very, very important issue. And UNESCO is a UN agency who is working with the government on policy device. This is the area that we can definitely support the member states. So I think that's probably it for the webinar today. I would like to thank again for Professor Intiratan and Ms. Brophy, and I will give the floor to Mari. Thank you.
Thank you, Jongli. Thank you, everybody, for great presentations and really active discussions from all the participants. We have so many questions today, more than usual. I want to say quite a lot of really interesting ones. So we'll ask you to look forward to our summary of this webinar, which will be posted on our UIL website. If you just go to uil.unesco.org, in a day or two, we will be posting the summary report for today's webinar, along with all the different presentations you were able to see. And we invite you to also share with us any measures or interesting initiatives you may have heard from or be part of in the context of distance learning education. We'll be providing an email in the chat for that. So we'll be meeting again next week for our webinar on prison education. We'll be looking to hear from cities and their responses to managing prisons, and more specifically, the delivery of prison education in the context of COVID-19. We'll be inviting cities from around the world to discuss what types of alternatives may have been set up during the crisis to ensure that there is a continuity of learning. And we'll also be looking at the role of distance learning in the context of prison education. So we look forward to seeing you there at the same time. This webinar was recorded and you'll be able to view it on our UIL YouTube channel. The link was provided in the chat earlier today, and I think we'll be posting it one more time here. If you don't find the link, please feel free to go to UIL on YouTube and you'll find us right away. And with that, I wish you a happy afternoon, morning, depending on where you are, or evening. And we'll see you next week. Thank you.